Hey! Welcome to a new series that I wanted to do where I look at the differences between the manga and anime of a series. I'll mostly be talking about major changes, though if something is minor but interesting, I'll throw it into the video. If I don't cover a certain scene in the anime, that likely means there were negligible changes to it, if any at all. For the first video, we'll be talking about the changes in Shikimori's Not Just a Cutie, episode 1. Originally, I was going to cover multiple episodes, but it was a bit of an editing nightmare for me, so we're going to take it slow. Obviously, there will be spoilers for the episode I cover, but while I may mention some later chapters from the manga that we haven't seen yet, it will be kept spoiler-free. Let's get to it! So before I get into the comparisons, I wanted to talk about Volume 1 of this manga. Now, the series started from the author posting chapters on Twitter. These chapters were typically only 4 or so pages long, and because of this, the majority of Volume 1 is disjointed, smaller moments in Izumi and Shikimori's relationship, taking place across their first year of school together. This was actually the inspiration for this series of videos I'm doing, because due to the way the series started out, we were bound to see some interesting changes in the anime. I do expect, however, that as the anime goes on and they run out of the early chapters to sprinkle throughout the anime, the videos on these series might end up getting a lot shorter because there will be less change to talk about. So, these first couple scenes are anime originals, where Izumi is getting ready as well as the walk to meet up with Shikimori. It makes sense for the anime to do this because it serves as an introduction to Izumi's character, as well as one of the themes of the show, Izumi's horrible luck. After meeting with Shikimori, we go into this scene, which is an adaptation of the first chapter in the manga. But it does have a slight change to it from the source material, and it's actually a type of change that happens a couple times in the anime. So here we see Shikimori save Izumi from getting hit by Truck-gun here. However, in the manga, what happens is a little more violent. In the manga, a smaller vehicle passes by the couple, and in the process, Izumi's bag strap gets wrapped around the mirror, violently tugging him away. Then, 2 panels later, we come upon this familiar scene, though Izumi is considerably more beat up. This is the first instance of violence against a character in the anime being toned down from the manga, but it won't be the last. So this scene does a couple things differently than chapter 15, which is what it's adapted from, if you haven't caught on to the premise of this video yet. Shikimori teasing Izumi about mispronouncing his name, for instance. This is referencing a moment we haven't actually seen yet in the anime, but it was in the previous chapter in the manga, chapter 14. I think we'll see this chapter adapted as it's an important point in Izumi and Shikimori's early relationship, so I'll cover it a bit more in a future video once it actually happens in the anime. Another change in this scene is that it serves as an introduction to our lovable couple as 3 friends, Inuzuka, Nekozaki, and Hachimitsu. In the manga, Inuzuka just straight up isn't in this chapter. In fact, while all 3 characters have been seen in the manga at this point, none of them get named and formally introduced until chapter 18, which we'll touch on a bit more in a minute. Not much to say about this scene here except that it's an anime original. Well, partially. The teacher welcoming the students to their second year is actually at the beginning of chapter 18, which I'll talk about next. What's unique to the anime here, though, is Izumi is once again flubbing his introduction. Originally, I thought that due to this scene existing, we wouldn't get to see chapter 14 adapted at all in the anime, which is where this joke comes from in the manga. But I really don't think that's the case, as it contains a fairly important moment. Now, I'm gonna fast forward a bit past this chalk incident and the classmates teasing Izumi afterwards, because there isn't really much to talk about in differences here. However, in this scene, where Inuzuka invites Izumi to hang out after school, and the gang goes bowling together, there is some. This is an adaptation of chapter 18, which I've actually already mentioned. Remember when I was talking about how the friends hadn't been introduced yet? Well, this is where it happens in the manga, right after the teacher's done welcoming them. Obviously in the anime they've already been introduced, so we skip that bit of the chapter and go right to the invitation to hang out. So, the friends go out bowling, Shikimori kicks everyone's ass, and afterwards the friends say their goodbyes. Then, Izumi mentions needing to treat the winner since he lost the game, and Shikimori wants to be walked home for her prize. None of this is in the manga, which leads us to our next scene. So, This is a very good example of the anime taking the shorter chapters from Volume 1 and resequencing them between chapters that happen later in the story. This is an adaptation of Chapter 3, and while the content of this scene remains largely unchanged, when it happens is a different story. Obviously, in the anime, this is them walking home after bowling. In the manga, however, they are on their way to school on a particularly windy day. There is one difference aside from when it takes place, though. In the anime, we see Shikimori do a sick spin kick to save Izumi from the falling sign, but in the manga, she simply pulls him out of harm's way. Quite the embellishment on the part of the animation studio. Well, that does it for this episode of Anime vs. Manga. Originally, I was going to do the first 4 episodes all in the first video, but realized while writing the script that it would take me far too long to edit, like I mentioned earlier. As for if it's always going to just be 1 episode per video, I don't know. It honestly depends on how many changes take place in the rest of the anime. As I said at the beginning, I think as they get more into the structured storytelling of Volume 2 and onward and run out of the little chapters from Volume 1, I'll have less to talk about. But we'll see. Thanks for watching, and see you soon!